Welcome to Trending in Education. Mike Palmer here. I'm very excited today to be joined by Bryon Pierson Jr., who is the founder and CEO of a company called EDUrain, looking at housing solutions in higher ed. We're going to get into more about that a little bit later. But before we do that, Bryon, I want to welcome you to the show. Welcome to Trending in Education.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And this is the first interview post being a Techstars founder. And this is awesome because, again, as I talk to you, the market knows us as a underfunded, under-resourced team with a great idea.
Yeah.
And now that we, are in Techstars, I keep talking every day. I'm like, man, now we got like Lex Luthor type resources. So
Exactly. Yeah.
we can 10x, product development, 10x design development. And like, there's so many things that we're doing right now that I'm just like, I can't believe how fast technology is. And I
Yes.
can't believe how tapped in Techstars is into that quick, fast-paced technology movement.
Right.
Uh, and and how EDUrain is leveraging some of those tools
Right.
to speed up our development.
Yeah, it's great. And like you're getting podcasts, you're on Trending in Ed. You're ready for the Trending in Ed bump, like as if Techstars wasn't enough. Now you're on a podcast, hopefully ready to take off. And then your story is really interesting on a personal level. Maybe you could share that next. Your background and how it connects to what you're trying to do with EDUrain.
Yeah, we're working with this group called Forefront Coaching and Mavity, which is a design firm, on our demo day pitch. And so, like, I kind of wanted to kind of give you the first little
Sure.
60 seconds of like what they, kind of spit back in like a rough draft. It's not the official pitch,
Okay.
but we're just kind of like playing some things out. I'm Bryon, the CEO of EDUrain, and I struggled in life finding a stable home in network as a foster care college student. In fact, I moved 7 times and I had 22 roommates in college. This college housing issue is a huge problem. College admins at the top 175 colleges can only house 20% of the undergraduate population. And all college housing specific administrators lack the resources at scale to support students transitioning into off campus housing. The student housing specific property management groups struggle with a law that restricts them from directly targeting students. And the college won't directly partner with them because the student is the customer of the college and they don't want the liability issues potentially. And students, well, 44% of them struggle to find a roommate at the college they attend, and they need a guide or renting for the first time. Students in this equation suffer from a lack of trustworthy options, only see visibility of the most expensive options, will spend a lot of time figuring out their housing when they're in a time crunch while still leading a very busy life. EDUrain.org is like Zillow for college renting. And we white label these platforms, these EDUrain.org sites for colleges so they can have their own property management platform with a college renter's guide and 4 different types of roommate search. With EDUrain dominating the market, students can confidently secure housing and know who they are living with. The property management industry can efficiently lease without worry, and universities are able to house 100% of their students safely and with minimum housing disruption, if any. Thank you.
That's pretty good. Suddenly I feel like Mark Cuban. Suddenly I feel like I need to respond to the Shark Tank pitch. But that was great. And I think the problems I think are real for anyone who's been to college or knows folks who are going to college. There's a lot that you're juggling. It includes figuring out housing. Housing costs for on-campus housing have been rising. It seems like at least as fast as tuition, perhaps even faster, depending on where you're going. Everyone knows that tuition is too damn high. Shout out to the mayoral candidate in New York. I forget his name. The rent is too damn high.
Jimmy McMillan.
There you go. Jimmy McMillan, who I met with my wife in Dumbo one day. He's famous for his mutton chops. Jimmy appreciated that I knew that the rent was too damn high and I knew that he built a platform around it. And I will attest, as a tenant in Brooklyn, New York, the rent is in fact too damn high. But those problems translate. Real estate's just hard. And then you're still coming of age. You just made a choice to go to this university. And then on campus housing makes sense to a point. But I do remember where I went to school by year three, year four, you're kind of ready for something more. And, college also as that, launch point for the rest of your adult life. You kind of have to learn how to manage yourself as an adult. Part of that means learning how to pay your rent, learning how to handle your housing situation. Can you share more of your background? Because it does sound like, when you were growing up, like some of these problems were very front and center and, get a little more of your own personal journey as an entrepreneur because you're not typical on a lot of fronts. By the way, the Lex Luthor thing, hopefully things will end better for you than for Lex, though, right? I mean, like we do have to work on that aspect of the analogy.
Well, I don't have the same goals as Lex Luthor. You know what I mean? Like Lex Luthor trying to take over the world, and
Yeah,
he's literally fighting an alien to do that.
right. That's true.
Like, now it is 2023. The government comes up and says aliens are real and they're trying to stop EDUrain from dominating the college market. This would get incredibly interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
But I hope at this time that does not happen. And I hope the American government has better things to do than to bring aliens to America to stop EDUrain from growing. That sounds like a whole movie.
Because I was wondering whether the aliens were brought here or whether they're just coming here on their own. Again, separate podcast. You're welcome for those listeners who are craving conspiratorial alien screenplays with super villains who are not actually super villains who are developing property websites for colleges. Again, this is the wonder of editing. I'm a brilliant editor, Brian. We'll figure out how out there we want it to be. But can you share a little more of your own background and really how some of this is personal for you?
Yeah, okay. So one thing I didn't really think about is I was an entrepreneur at 11 and 12 and 13. So, I disregarded because I sold lemonade. Who cares? But I had me and this guy named Paul. We knew at a young age that we're gonna have to bring a diverse set of folks that didn't look like us and use our network and use their network in order for to be successful. For example, our lemonade stand, me and my buddy Paul, we're both two black kids. He's 2 years younger than me. And then there was like some kids in the neighborhood, mostly white. And in our lemonade stand, we had a team that held the sign. We had another team. So where we were at, there's a parking lot, then there was Paul's house, and then on the other side of the parking lot was a street, and we're on a main street. So in front of the parking lot was a main road. And
Yeah,
so next to that, and then on the other side of that street that was like cutting across
yeah.
was this place called Hit and Run, which is a drive up convenience store where the people in the convenience store come out and ask you what you want. And
Oh,
then they go inside to get it. And
okay.
then they also had a laundromat too,
Mm,
on it. And they had a car wash too.
okay.
So this had
It's like
so
a
we had a system.
little commercial district. There's people out there. There's foot traffic. This is not a bad place to set up a lemonade stand,
Especially with a bunch of kids,
right?
you know? And so we would make like $150 a day.
Wow.
Well, because like they would be run we would
This
have
is
people running in between the cars.
summertime too, right? This is summer.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And it would be like 7 kids. We would yell, we would yell to get the attention, right, and hold the sign. Then there'd be another group that would be going and running in between the cars of this commercial district.
Sure.
And then down the street from us, like 3 blocks was the middle school. There was only one middle school in this 3-city radius, and it was right there. And so people coming from summer school, teachers and stuff like that would stop and get as well.
What geography is this? Where are we talking about?
This is in Alton, Illinois.
Okay.
So, I did that or whatever. But like my father got into real estate. He was a maintenance man at a real estate company. He struggled to get a good job. Then he figured out the bidding process and he opened up his own company called Get Her Done Construction. He's off a myriad cable guy.
That is a pretty cool expression to associate yourself with. So kudos to your dad for his marketing vision. Get her done. I'll spell it right. Please continue. Get her done. Yeah.
I'm not for sure on the spelling because, like, that wasn't my business. And I was like I was like 14.
Sure.
So, like, I didn't really care about business. Well, okay,
Yeah.
I guess I did. I didn't know I cared about business.
What did Get Her Done do?
Fix your lights at your house,
Okay.
fix windows, fix the toilet, fix, like,
Kind of like
broken
almost like a super that comes to your home.
a superintendent.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yes, and the superintendent is gonna fix things too. I feel like a lot of times the
Right.
superintendent just calls out to fix something.
Yeah. I mean, I'm showing my age here, but I'm talking about like Schneider in One Day at a Time. Lives in the basement. And I've lived in buildings like that where like the super actually gets to live in the basement apartment and tends to be there all the time. And if you have a problem, you go down and you knock on their door.
That's like the RA model. I used to be an RA in college too.
Yes. Yes.
Live at the bottom of the hallway.
Right.
Like, if something goes wrong, well, I ideally, you would call somebody that's in charge and not the kid
Right. Right.
at the bottom of the hallway.
Right.
You know,
Right. Right.
it's funny when
Sure.
when you think power dynamics and stuff like that, and some kid will think some other kid that's the same age as them knows something better than them. And
Right.
I'm just like,
I think they
"No."
know it's more like they know who to call, and at that point there is still at least higher ed, and this ties back a little bit to EDUrain too. There is that idea of like in loco parentis, like somebody's in charge, somebody's responsible for what's going on here, and that's an institution. And then the RA is the representative of the institution. So I kind of get it. And it does feel like, I mean, the stuff that's going on in Israel and Palestine right now is just really terrible, the loss of life and everything that's going on over there, both sides. And then how that's now making campuses, which were already extremely polarized, even more polarized and stressful. And like that's the context you're launching EDUrain into. Why is housing important? What kind of problems happen in that space? And any ways in which what you're solving with EDUrain kind of connects to the broader context of what's going on in higher ed nowadays?
Oh, loaded question. But thank you though, because, like, part of our roommate match, you can upload your social media accounts and those kind of things optionally. And hopefully you check into your potential roommate's social media before you room with them,
Yeah.
because it would show you if they're going to be about their political values.
Hmm.
Because, like, as a gay man, as a black gay man, I don't want to room with a homophobic, racist person.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
like, so I'm gonna be looking for, like, okay,
Yeah.
you protest at a pride event. Like, that's like one thing. If you did that, no, you're not. And also, in my opinion, if you're 19 protesting at a pride event, you're probably doing that because you're overcompensating for something.
That's
Please
good.
keep that in there. Please let people be mad about that. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
let the 19-year-olds that are protesting LGBT rights come after me, because, like, there wasn't gonna be for me anyway. But, also the housing security piece, we're going to 100% listing inventory model so that we have a complete lay of the land of college housing. Right now, we are launched at Tulsa, Oklahoma, St. Louis, Missouri, St. Louis Dispo, and Cal Poly, and Chicago. And by the time of this podcast coming out, not only are we going to be launched, but we will have a relaunch with new features. We're integrating with Stripe, TransUnion. We're integrating with Zapier as well.
Mm.
And, like, all of this is about making sure that potential renters are communicating efficiently and effectively with the landlord and property manager group. Make sure that we have a verified way that the school can make sure students can do payments with the landlords in a verified way, and Stripe is doing a verification of landlords for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And then TransUnion students can build credit paying for rent on or off campus for free through our platform in
Hmm.
partnership with TransUnion as well. So not only do we give them a safe place to stay and insight to who they're going to live with, we're also like this tool that is like developing them before they get out into the real world. Kind
Yeah.
of like this city environment of, like, real life, because 'cause you're, like, in college and, like, you probably have a parent You have friends that are your roommates. You probably have a part-time job. Like, you have all these things that are backing you in, like, grants and loans and stuff like that.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
can make sure you can stay in housing
Right.
before you go get out into the real world 3 or 4 years down the road after you get into that first apartment.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like knowing how to take care of housing is a life skill that every adult really needs. And it's seldom formally on any curriculum. And now increasingly, colleges, higher ed is looking at student success, retention, graduation, and then ideally life success down the road, job placement, all those other things. All those things are
Yeah.
tied to housing and tied to being able to make informed decisions about it. And then the economics of it, is a real thing as well, where, how do you get more options available so that folks can make smart decisions? How about that too? Like just in terms of where students live, how to make sure it's safe, how to make sure, when it becomes more affordable, frequently it gets more dangerous. Folks seem very concerned about, rightly so, about the safety of college age students when they're away in a college experience. How are you helping address some of the safety concerns that are out there?
Yeah, we actually have a partnership with the crime statistics website, and that we're by the time this podcast is gonna be out, it's gonna be implemented in those 3 markets, or you can see the crime statistics of the lay of that market
Mhm.
on where your listing is.
Right.
You can see that, you can know that, you can make that informed choice.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So then the idea is more transparency, more openness in the market is ultimately going to benefit everybody. And then you said you're in 3 cities mainly right now and you're looking to expand. What does growth look like? Where are you looking to expand? How do you see this thing taking off?
New York, there's a couple colleges in New York that I wanna partner with, and in some HBCUs, and then we're gonna start the pipeline to grow it back up. I go on the top 175, but, there's some specific use cases of different colleges that I wanna solve for so that we can grow with a targeted growth model,
Yep.
instead of just like any college.
Right. Right.
New York, I want a foothold in New York because it's like this like guy that ran away from home when he was 15
Right.
to be able to say that like, my startup has partnerships in New York and it's growing, that will be insane.
Right. Because if you
And,
make it here, and I'm based that this is Brooklyn speaking. If you make it here, you can make it anywhere, Brian. But also in terms of your background, we haven't gotten into that as much as you're comfortable sharing. But like it did sound like running away at 15. That does give you a kind of unique hero's journey as an entrepreneur. Are you comfortable talking more about that? Because I think that is a pretty interesting element to your story.
yeah, I like put myself in the foster care. I got like emancipated and I was raised by like a couple different families. And I was a star athlete. I was a wrestler. I was part of Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I was a Republican until I was like 20. And like when I came out, all of that went out the window. At 21, 'cause like, also with counseling and like becoming who I was, I was like, it's interesting, talking about did the party leave me or did I leave it? And I'm
Mhm.
like, well, I think they really just kind of left me because I
Yeah.
wasn't willing to hide who I was anymore.
Right.
And I think that a lot of at the time and like where it's at now, I'm just like, oh my God, it's like insane.
Right.
But let's not talk about the political side. But when I was in college at Lincoln College, when I was a college wrestler, I made it to college wrestling. I was an RA. I was resident hall assistant in my second year, and I was a wrestler. And my first organization officially started out as this group called Purple Rain, which had nothing to do with my little sister Serenity Rain, which the company is named after.
Okay.
It was actually Purple Rain because like the school was purple,
Hmm.
and Prince had an album
Oh, I'm aware.
that was just, like, very, like, awe-inspiring, and
Yes.
it was, like it was such a mood, and I was like, "We can make something that is the student fan club section that is, like, in all of our sports teams,
Mm.
and it can be Purple Rain, and,
Yeah.
like, our section is the Purple Rain."
I like it. And just to give me a timestamp on this, what time period are we talking about? Because Prince has gone through multiple periods of being someone people discover. Like when were you doing the Purple Rain?
2013 or 14.
That's what I'm talking about. Prince certainly gone too soon, and because I remember back when I was a teenager, but when Prince was first hitting the scene, my goodness. I mean, because when that album came out, that movie, it's just incredible to me to think about the cultural impact of something when 30 years later, a student fan section is being named after your music and your album. Shout out to Prince. I didn't realize we were going to have a shout out to Prince in this episode, but there it was.
I mean, Prince is just great. Like
Yeah.
he is.
Mhm.
He is. Like he is the he is incredible alternative to Michael Jackson, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my opinion, in all ways.
Hmm.
In all ways. He is the credible alternative. Like the only thing you can say about Prince is probably that people think that he's gay.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. That's it. That's literally it. That's it. And then if you think that's true, it plays into how funny, how sassy his comments are.
Sure.
Because Prince is known to be somebody that to throw a backhanded compliment at you.
Sure. Yeah.
But he's also like a super nice.
He
That's
also,
that's
I mean, we're riffing on Prince, might as well for a little bit here, but it's also like I feel like his sexuality kind of transcends like one side or the other. Like he's just sort of like artist. I mean, he's the artist, you know what I mean? And then for him, I hadn't really thought about it because I usually have more sports conversations. I do a podcast called Running It Back for those of you who enjoy sports conversations. Running It Back available everywhere you get your podcasts. But on Running It Back, we're doing the GOAT conversation all the time. I forget that there is a meaningful musical GOAT conversation around Michael versus Prince. So again, I didn't expect to hit Lex Luthor, The Rent is Too Damn High, and Prince versus Michael GOAT conversation in the same episode. Bryon, thank you again for your service. But you were talking about how tough it was for you growing up and being emancipated. You have to become an adult, uh, have an adult sensibility earlier. You also understand what it's like having to live in different places, and then you're at college where you're an RA and you're kind of helping other people navigate some of their problems. I imagine that context is very similar to the space you're operating with now with EDUrain. Can you catch us up on what happened between wrestling in college and founding EDUrain?
Yeah. So I graduated and from Lincoln College and went to SIUE. Lincoln College acquired that org that I created, and they invested in it, and they gave it a band and all this other stuff. And
I
like
see. So that's right. So EDUrain was a project you started your senior year in
at
college. Is that?
SIUE, and
I,
SIUE. So I showed up, and I was like, okay, I could be whatever, I'm gonna go to a big school, and like let's go.
just that I understand though too. Like the Lincoln is you transferred or it's a 2 year
It was a
college?
JUCO. The
Got it.
JUCO.
Okay.
I was a wrestler. I was pretty good, but I got beat by the backup of Iowa State, and I was just like, "I'm not gonna be doing this if I'm gonna get beat this bad by backup and
Yeah.
still win 90% of my matches, but the backup at these D1 schools are kicking my butt." I'm like,
Right.
"No, I'm not gonna
Because
go
you,
to the D1 level and
yeah,
get especially if there's not gonna be a bunch of money in it."
because you started Division 3.
JUCO is like JUCO is a lot of times when people go JUCO, it's like they're trying to jump to D1 or D2.
I see. So rather than go D3, you go to JUCO, and then you're planning to transfer 2 years in and like kind of upgrade. And that's where you gave me a bunch of initials, but what university was that?
Southern Illinois University.
Okay, sure. Southern Illinois. Yeah, exactly. And even as a sports fan, I'm familiar enough with Southern Illinois. It's an actual NCAA sports program.
I beat the starter there my sophomore year at Lincoln College in the Lindenwood Open.
Nice.
Uh, but I was just like, that was the same tournament I lost to the dude from Minnesota and Iowa.
Okay, we're gonna have
So
to we'll work on that when we talk about your screenplay. Because that I already can see the wrestling montages. A little Vision Quest meets Karate Kid. We'll spitball that a little bit later on.
I love Vision Quest. I
As
love
a
Vision.
wrestler, it's probably the best wrestling movie out there, right? If you talk about like actual amateur wrestling style, probably has room for more.
Honestly, I think wrestling is underproduced sport
Mhm.
when it comes to the theatrics of it,
Correct. I agree.
because, like, there's so much you could do with that because
Yeah.
it's kinda insane. The
Mhm.
sport is insane on all levels,
Mhm.
and, like, the amount of focus
Yeah.
and preparation you have to have for a 6-minute thing.
Right.
So
Cool, cool, cool.
so basically, I joined a frat, it didn't go well. I transferred out a semester to go back to SWIC, and I told the admission counselor at SWIC, "If you give me a semester to get my life back together, Imma come back and at SAE, and Imma do everything I can to be everything that I am, and I'm not gonna be embarrassed about anything about myself,
Mhm.
and I'm going to authentically be everything that I wanna be and who I am." And I joined the LGBT organization.
Mhm.
And I was a secretary for like a semester, and then I ran for president and I won,
Mm.
and I grew the group from 4 to 60 within a couple months,
Yeah.
and we won homecoming. We never even competed in homecoming as an org, and we won it. We broke the amount of points you can get,
Yeah.
and then I started, since we had 60 people and the most we ever had is like 10 at the time, all these problems that people were reporting, and I documented all of it. And then I came up with this thing called the Serenity Plan of how to enroll and retain different LGBT students in higher education. And
Mm.
really, it was like the first version of EDUrain, and it was a data science project. I was the coder, and you can
Yeah.
Google that. Illinois State University 26th Annual Students of Political Science Conference. I am presenting in my section on state, local opinion and politics and opinion. And really, we built EDUrain for the kid that was cut off from their parents to find housing in college.
I see. Mhm.
And that's, like, for the most vulnerable. You
Yeah.
might not have the most money. You gotta think about who you're actually gonna live with. But then we realized that all kids just kinda have the same issue.
Yeah.
We took away the LGBT perspective, and we just made it available for everybody.
Mhm.
And people are like, "Man, this is good."
Yeah.
And we kinda just kept growing that, and
Yeah.
now we're growing that,
Mhm.
and we got more efficient with the data that we track, the data that we're going after as well, proof points to how do we become a successful organization that not only makes money, but makes an impact
Yeah.
and looks good and it's easy to onboard yourself.
Mm.
And now we have, over 1,000 accounts. We're used in 41 different countries. We got 3 colleges we're partnered with. There's about 15 others in the pipeline. And right now, we have, like 1,000 listings. We should be onboarding about 3,000 listings by the end of this week.
Mhm.
And, yeah, we're just, like, growing. And, like,
Yeah.
like, the roommate search, we're improving that. There's some special things that we're gonna be doing in the next 3 weeks as well, even through that. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I feel like that's kinda what the investors and the colleges and the students wanna hear, like, about the story and, like, where we're going and how we're doing it.
This is Mike. I went on and will include the remainder of my conversation with Bryon. Here we get more into Lex Luthor, make some interesting connections between Lex and contemporary figures in today's zeitgeist. Bryon clearly is a visionary, got some interesting stuff going on here. The problem of housing security in higher ed and what EDUrain is doing is also worth checking out. We'll include links to that in the show notes. With that, we're going to play the theme music to send you out. And for those of you who are enjoying our pop culture rants, there's a little bit more of that before we sign off for today. Thanks again for listening. Thanks for the support. We'll be back again soon. This is Trending in Education. I did not expect us to be going as deep on Prince. The rent is too damn high. That was pretty entertaining.
Look, I'm just gonna say this. I am always interested in all the different things because, I used to be a scene kid back in the day,
Mm.
which means I used to be in a punk rock group. So, like, my musical choices are a mixture of people like Prince, people like Taking Back Sunday, Blink-182,
Mm.
a group called Brand New. You can't listen to them too much because they make you depressed. but like they have a song called Jesus Christ,
Mm,
and they're a alternative group. So like, but it's like this like heart of like a Christian kid, like knowing that they have lost their way.
mm,
And it's like prayer to like God, but it's also like I am not the kid I once was, but I'm still a young person.
yeah,
And like this is actually who I am.
mm,
And it's like it's a secular song.
sure.
And it's like really good because like I think something that people don't do is they don't understand the dichotomy between you were that Christian kid and you were good and okay, you didn't meet those criteria of what you thought was a successful
Right.
adjusted adult,
Hmm.
but you're still a good person.
Right.
You tried to do all the things.
Hmm.
And like once you get to that point of actualization of like, oh, you've been good. Like, for example, like
Yeah.
there's some people like Brian, you've been nice your whole life. And I'm like, have I? They're like, the bar has been like up here
Right. Right.
in your mind.
This gets back to my Lex Luthor point where like it's good though, because it is kind of edgy and you had a good response there. But it's like you don't have to be pegged on the villain side, you know, especially because he lost. I think it's almost like maybe you want to be Thanos, but Thanos lost too. Like the villain's always kind of lost. Thanos also is too powerful. Lex is nice. It makes us root for you because Lex is also like an underdog.
That's interesting they say Lex is the underdog. I never think Lex is the underdog because he always kind of had a chance to win.
Sure.
It's just that Superman was an alien.
Right.
Like no matter what Lex Luthor did,
Oh,
Super
I'm talking like for me, my age, Lex Luthor is both the Super Friends cartoons from Saturday morning, which was amazing, in which case he's lead baddie, and it's against the whole Super Friends, not just one Super Friend, all of them. You know, he's the head of the Legion of Doom.
yes.
That's the first connection. But then Superman, the first movie, Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. Like that's the you've seen the first one, right?
Yes.
Because like that depiction, because then he that's like a real world, that's like kind of convincing. And he's got Ned Beatty as his like goofball sidekick, you know? That was that's like my rude understanding of Lex Luthor. And I guess in that case, I would probably fund him as like, you know, an investor. I'd be like, you know, at the end of the day, he's got some good points, you know, that California is at risk, you know, it's still true. It's still true.
You know, it's interesting to me how Lex Luthor, okay, in about 15 years, 20 years, we might be able to see people like Lex Luthor exist,
Sure.
which is scary.
Sure.
Like, like Batman is
Actually,
probably
I mean,
already a person.
you could
There's
argue
already somebody, a person like Batman
we could argue
that
like Musk is he'll probably be fully bald by then. So Elon is probably on track towards Lex Luthor.
oh, I did not think about that
I
part.
didn't
Oh,
either. And I'd actually been talking Tony Stark for him. He's definitely Tony Stark is gone for Elon at this point.
yeah,
But I do
yeah.
think Lex is certainly enraged, you know?
You know, I just not thought about that. Yeah, yeah. Lex Luthor, yes, because like Lex Luthor had rockets. They just didn't. They never made it. They never. Superman would stop them by the time they would actually.
Right. Right. Lex is like, listen, they're gonna land, it'll be upside down, it'll be cool. And Superman's I just need to save the world. It's like, dude, if you just let me alone, I'd be Elon Musk or Lex, you know?
Superman would just come and push the rocket over that blows up, and Luthor would be. So first off, Superman never really caught. He caught Lex Luthor a couple times, but
Yeah.
most time Lex Luthor got away somehow.
Sure. I mean,
Superman
it's
had to stop the thing.
yeah.
Lex
I mean,
Luthor was like,
right.
"Man, everyone."
What's supervillains are really good at getting out of jail and escaping. They're not really good at taking over the world. Like that's their charm. Like if they actually took over the world, it'd be kind of boring. But also if they were just stuck in federal pen for 50 years, you know, like that's also boring too. So like they have to, you know, the escapability I think is yeah, this is an entire we're doing like a pop culture podcast. This is entertaining.